Project Information Generation 2 on Wolf Spirit Radio, simulcast with Revolution Radio and Free Thinking Radio.
Run, wolf warriors who went eternal through the records of the death of the day. Are you running to freedom's fortress by the side of white open seas ahead, where the wolf is one with the wild, where the wolf is one with the wild.
Presented for you this evening by Dave Corso and Roger Silver.
Vortex. Dave isn't doing the show today. He's put me in as a host of a new show. Hopefully I'll be doing more shows in the future. It's called Dream Radio Vortex. That's what it's currently going to be called. It's the 10th of January 2012, 2 p.m. PST, 10 p.m. GMT. Hello. My guest today is Andrew Johnson. His website is... Do you want to introduce your website, Andrew?
Sure, yeah, checktheevidence.com.
Okay. How are you doing, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thanks. How about you?
Yeah, very good. Slightly nervous. I didn't sleep last night. I've been slightly riled up with all the interesting things happening in the world recently. Various slanders against different people. One of them actually being David Icke's ex-wife. I have spoken to her a few times in the past, just few comments here and there, and I thought there's something strange about it. She was saying love, light, and peace, and all that kind of stuff, and I just felt that something wasn't quite right there, and last year I said Happy New Year to her and stuff, and this year I felt like I shouldn't, and then apparently she's taken out a case against David Icke, so that's interesting. That's just before his new book's coming out, and also some guy, I should have looked up his name, but he's taking out a case against Jesse Ventura. Jesse crossed the border into Mexico because he goes to Baja to surf and all sorts down there to get away. And this hit piece came out just as he crossed the border, apparently. And it's this guy's claiming that he punched Jesse because Jesse was saying that Navy SEALs deserve to die and all sorts, and that seems to be a complete lie. And it's quite funny because this guy has interesting connections to this martial law whole thing, the NDNA, wherever it's called, and it's like they're setting this guy up to be the hero of that, and I just find it quite interesting how these hit pieces are coming out in interesting times and all together. I just don't see that as coincidence, personally, and also with Ron Paul as well, many hit pieces. So what do you think about all that?
Well, I think, yeah, it certainly seems to be a pattern that's recurring, and you know, I'm somewhat familiar with Jesse Ventura, and as far as I'm concerned, he is one of the good guys, and he was, you know, there was quite an interesting segment on Alex Jones's program a few months ago where he spoke out in support of somebody we might talk about later, and that was a very interesting segment, actually. And so I think he is, Jesse Ventura is one of the few people who really is trying to do the right thing and I think obviously he's doing it in a certain way from his history and stuff like that. But I think beneath all of that, he is of the right mindset to try and make some kind of changes in the world in the way that he sees that he might be able to, sort of thing. If I can put it like that.
Mm.
And I'd say probably say similar things about David Icke. There's lots of twists and turns to that story, of course, but David Icke does seem to have had his fair share of strange sort of friends turning on him and this sort of thing. So, as far as I'm aware, I think that's an indication that these people are making a difference, and so at some level or other, seem to be being targeted for some kind of sort of actions which will, stop them doing what they're doing as effectively as they have been doing it, if I can put it like that.
Mm. Well, it's almost showing who are the real people. They're showing who the real people are, and they're exposing themselves, because these stories don't add up, or maybe they're not expecting people to find the stories, or there's another possibility that they're making it really obvious so that the people who are awake will see it, because they apparently have this philosophy where they have to tell you what they're doing.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they make the stories so ridiculous. Or maybe they just seem ridiculous because all the information's come out because people take the time to research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So, it's getting a lot of this, this sort of activity, where I think, I think that one of the problems is that people are kind of, some people are drawn to it because it becomes, a bit of a soap opera. And if you become focused on a particular figure, even if they're...
Hang on a second, guys. I'm sorry. We've been kicked off the stream, so we're not broadcasting. Let me just try and get that back.
Okay, where did we get... Sorry, where did we get up to?
I don't know.
Maybe we could ask.
I think Dave was... Kick incumbent. What the hell's going on? Right, okay.
Hey, it's Rebecca Shane.
Yeah, sorry. That's in it for later on. Okay, so I'd wind it back to just before you were talking about just after you were talking about Jesse Ventura. If you can remember that.
Okay.
Can you remember that?
Well, sure, we can go from somewhere around.
Oh, hang on. No, we're off again.
Okay.
Why does our stream keep cutting out? I'm just a bit suspicious. Hang on, somebody's trying to do something. Right, and stop that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. At least for the minute. I'm producing for Chris Vortex and Andrew Johnson, and on you go, guys.
Okay, we were talking about Jesse Ventura and David Icke and Ron Paul, and how these people are... the smear campaigns are coming out against them, and how it's quite interesting, and seems to be showing who are the real guys, and the truth seems to be coming out, because the bad guys their hands are being shown. And I've also noticed something else recently to do with this NDAA, as it's called. There's this Lindsey Graham and Joe Lieberman, and they just seem like complete psychopaths. Obviously, most of these guys are psychopaths, it seems. But they've been saying that the American people should be scared of this bill and all of that, and then Obama has been saying that he's considering bypassing Congress and becoming a dictator, and he just sounds really creepy, Obama. I've put it on the back burner for quite a while, because whenever I can't even type his name or write his name because I just feel really weird. And I thought that it was maybe because of the whole fakeness of him being built up as a character and stuff, and that kind of fades away because it hasn't the momentum hasn't really carried so much, even though the support for him is still there. But I guess they've also been waiting for this time to push forward further. But I think a lot of the reason is that I had that feeling is because he actually really is a very creepy person. I really feel that he's a very dark person, and that's what I noticed yesterday, and I think this is part of why I couldn't sleep last night, because everything's just showing itself up for what it is, and it's like I feel really fired up to speak my truth and to do what I can and to get people together, like getting Andrew Johnson on my show and speaking about information that maybe others are not talking about, or a fuller spectrum. So, yeah, what do you think about Obama, Andrew?
Chris, you've raised some very interesting points there, I think. And, I too have been watching the Obama sort of phenomenon, I suppose I might call it, unfold over the last 5-6 years. And I'd just like to add a couple of easily, shown things which are odd. For example, Obama came on a European tour even before he was elected president. And I could be wrong, I'm not an expert in politics or history and so on, but I believe he's the only presidential candidate to go on a European tour before he's even been elected, which is very odd. And then, of course, people can go and check that, he received the Nobel Peace Prize, and I believe he received it, I can't remember the date, but if you work out the dates, he would only have been in office for 4 weeks when he received the nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. So, is that some kind of ritual that's going on there? I mean, I can't imagine it would be for any other reason. I mean, I'd never heard of Obama as a figure of doing anything. He wasn't involved in charity work, to my knowledge, or he wasn't a diplomat, to my knowledge, that I'd ever heard of, who'd gone and worked in third world countries or something like that before he became president. In fact, he's a relatively young guy to be president, I think, as the ages of presidents go. So I think that just adds to the strangeness. And a couple of other strange things. I mean, I could have got this wrong, or it could not be what I thought it was. But I heard a YouTube video with his voice. Now, I don't know whether it was somebody doing an impersonation of him, and maybe if there are listeners and they can get an email to you or to the show website or whatever and confirm whether he actually said this, but or whether it was just somebody doing an impression of him, in one of these sort of mock-up YouTube videos that appear from time to time. He described the U.S. Constitution as a flawed document, and I think that those were his words in this thing that I'd heard, and that's why I'm so, I'm sort of interested to know if I heard right, and he actually did say that, because I thought the president was meant to, defend the Constitution, not say, well, it needs updating, quote unquote, which is, I think, was kind of, at least in this video.
Well, I wouldn't at all be surprised. I've heard him say all sorts of things, and unfortunately, this is the person America has in power, and he can get away with it because people seem to worship him still. There was a video that I saw yesterday. This is why he's really creepy in this video, and he's saying that he wants to bypass Congress because they're not acting as he thinks that they should. Of course, they are completely corrupt, but he just wants to bypass people like Ron Paul and Rand Paul and Dennis Kucinich and, you know, those people. Wow, yeah. Getting very creepy.
It is, isn't it? And there's this other thing, I don't know if you'd heard of this, because a friend sent me this link the other day that the state of Georgia has actually said that Obama currently cannot be a candidate in their state for president because he has to prove that he's, his parents are both Americans, natural-born Americans, or whatever the Constitution requires. I can't remember the exact wording, whether it's, you have to be born in America or you have to be born in America and have American parents, and what have you. I can't remember what permutation of that it is, but, you obviously you will have heard, and people listening will have heard of this row over the birth certificate and so on. But apparently the state of Georgia is now about to put that into court, and has in fact put it into court, and the judge has said no, you can't dismiss this. Obama's legal team have tried to get the case dismissed, but the judge has said no, you have to prove your citizenship essentially, and that brings us then on to the birth certificate scandal, which is very odd again, and I saw a link, and it's actually, it's on the White House website, whitehouse.gov, a copy of the birth certificate, which was released, in a response to the rumours and everything that had been going around. Yet, at the bottom of this PDF document, which is a single page, it has the URL of Snopes, the Snopes website, within this PDF document, and it's claimed that this is a genuine copy of Obama's birth certificate, and yet it has the URL at the bottom of the Snopes website. And he's thinking that is, it is creepy, because something like that is so obvious to anybody that is not right. How could they possibly put that on the White House website? And there's an article about this by Jerome Corsi, whom I don't trust, actually, to be honest with you, but for various reasons. But nevertheless, this article that he's written and posted is again very interesting. Again, it's all this weirdness all around.
And it's getting more and more creepy by the day, and more interesting. But I think it's an opportunity, because then we can call it out, and that'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I have to wonder if there's some kind of, sort of self-organisation or self-sorting process which is going on, and people are kind of finding their level in all of this. That's what it kind of looks like to me, this whole thing that's going on, and you can be drawn into conflicts, or you can choose to say, well, I'm not going to get involved in that, I'm just going to observe, which is generally, what I'm doing. I'm just trying to act as an observer, and then, in situations like we're in now, tell people what I've observed, really, I suppose, and give some kind of, sort of thoughts on that.
Well, one thing that I've been thinking the last few days, and I've thought it in the past, but all good things that are in this world for the people are what the people have strived for. Either that, or it's been packaged by the powers that be to look like it's been packaged for the people. Mm-hmm. They've always taken something good that people have done and then twisted around and said, look, all the good things that we've done. I only see, I just see it as a psychopathic mind control construct, totally devious system.
I have to agree. And not too long ago, I listened to a very interesting broadcast. I think it was on the Red Ice, program with I think it's Tom Sheridan.
Thomas Sheridan, yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about the psychopaths running the world.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think the sorts of things that he was saying, he for me at least, he was very clearly describing how the shape of this mindset that you just alluded to, this psychopathic mindset. But the thing that seemed to encapsulate what he was saying, which seemed to time with what I've observed, is this idea of what he called a predatory consciousness. And the example that he gave is that you can have a psychopath is born into a perfectly loving, a normal, caring family. You can have all the family around them being perfectly, sort of what is normal, of course, but loving and caring and so on, looking out for each other, and then right in the middle of that situation, you'll get this psychopath who just has no feelings, is manipulative, always wants to get in front, get on top, and will be very cunning and shrewd and so on to get his own way or her own way, and I think, as he said, that the psychopaths tend to rise to the top in our society because they know how to manipulate us. They know which strings to pull to put us at a disadvantage, and then we end up, just being. I suppose I don't really want to use the word victims of that because that's not always how it turns out. But we become subjugated, I suppose, by that consciousness, and you see it at work all the time. It's the way that corporations work. I mean, corporations are generally psychopathic entities. Really, in the raw sense, I think. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I see them as military, the military-industrial complex, and it's against consciousness. And people like yourself, Jeremy, and myself, and Dave Corso, whose show this would have been,
Yeah, we lost the signal again. We're back on though.
Okay. How long was that? Just a few seconds?
Just a few seconds, yeah.
Okay. As I was saying, there are some people who have a connection, whether it's intuition or a deeper connection to something else, and we're striving for good in this world, and it's that which permeates then down to other people, who then pick that up as well. Maybe sometimes it's 100th monkey syndrome, but we're keeping this thing afloat. It's not the system that's keeping this thing afloat. They are trying to actively pull down consciousness all the time, and they've failed for such a long time. And now humanity is rising. It's consciousness is coming in more and more, and they're having to speed things up. And I think they're failing, but I see this whole system as being very interconnected, very psychopathic at all levels. Even people who are maybe not psychopaths or psychopathic, they play into this psychopathic system and they defend it. They fill it in, and so it perpetuates because people don't see an alternative, because they think that's the way it is and that's progress, and we're slowly improving all the time, but things are not perfect. But I think things are now showing themselves to not be exactly that way, and and the psychopaths are showing themselves up, and real people are being attacked, like David Icke and Jesse Ventura and Ron Paul, and so people are beginning to see where things are at, and with wars happening all over the world, I mean that's just not right, and I don't think that's necessarily what's waking people up. I think that there is an influx of energy, and I've always thought this. I've always thought that things were going to speed up, and we were going to get out of this, but obviously these wars are on, and people have just got to say no to it.
Yeah, I think, like you say, you tend to get caught up in the game. You know, I mean, I've thought about how I'm caught up in the game. You know, what I do to earn a living, for example, is, I mean, I don't go to war. I've no connection to the military or anything like that. But the work that I do, at one level, it's perpetuating the current system, and you know, it is preserving the values which are promulgated and promoted by that system. And you know, and unless you know you are truly subsistent, and you live off the land, and you treat your own waste and so on, then you know you're generally part of the system. You know, I mean, having an internet connection, most people that have an internet connection, not all, are part of the system. So, you know, I mean, certainly for me, I'm seeing things as a trade-off between looking at this system in the way that you mentioned, and the psychopathic elements which run through it, and thinking, well, you know, I'm actually perpetuating those elements because I'm supporting it. You know, I mean, I pay my taxes, you know, and so on. I drive a car and I have to pay a license for that, and I know that, you know, all the energy, you know, sort of fossil fuel energy. If I know that fossil fuel isn't really fossil fuel, but yet I know that all the energy is not. You know, we can have systems which don't need any fuel. I know all of that, and yet I still drive around in a regular car, you know, about my business and so on. So how am I going to stop the system, you know, if I'm perpetuating it? And I suppose that certainly for me, in a small way, not in a huge way, is a source of frustration. But nevertheless, I also feel that the system in its current state, now that we have, you know, we actually have now free, well, almost free global communication. And we've only really had that, I think, truly with things like Skype and the other variants and so on. We've only really had that in a usable form for probably 5 years. And I think that the force that you know, releases for, as you were talking about, the increase in consciousness and so on, and the raising of consciousness, perhaps, rather than well, I suppose it is an increase as well, is really you know, quite something quite powerful. And I think it is probably the catalyst for the ultimate change that people can embrace and embody if they so wish. And of course there are some who don't wish for the change. They don't want to take on board this larger reality. As I'm probably not the one to give it that name, but that's a name I feel comfortable with. This larger reality which is all around us, which many people are resistant to embracing, and are afraid of, indeed, absolutely petrified of embracing it. That's what the internet is kind of, for those that are ready to go that way, it's opened that door for them. And if they want to either walk through it completely or just have a look through see what's on the other side and then shut the door again. As I know people who've kind of done that. They've seen the big outside world and thought, nah, I'm going to stop in here where it's nice and warm. I'm not going to, basically just run naked into this new enlarged reality. It's just too scary for me at the minute. That's the way I sometimes look at all of this.
Yeah. Well, most people seem to be pawns within the system and playing for the system, and actively perpetuating it. But I think what you're doing and what others are doing is consciously acting within the system, transmuting it from within, if you like. So stepping into it, but then spreading your light within it, like a candle in a dark room. It spreads its light, and who knows how much you're doing and what other people are doing, because I still see a very deep lack of consciousness within vast numbers of people, and I think it's not a great number of people who are keeping the balance in the good. But I think that the good is speeding up as well. It'll be interesting how this year goes.
I think it will, and of course we've got all the doom and gloom predictions again, and I'm almost at the point of laughing at them now. I mean, I don't know whether it's just me or what it is, but I've had so many predictions, and everyone's talking about 2012 and so on. But to me, it seems more like I don't know. It seems more like something that's not going to happen on so much a physical level as maybe if I can use the word an astral level or something like that. I mean, I'm not a great expert on. I've heard people talk about astral bodies and the 7 levels of the human body and chakras and this sort of thing. And I don't really understand all of that side of things. I'm very interested in it, but I don't feel ready to explore that in any deep sense. The way my life is at the moment in the physical body and all of that. But I believe that if 2012 is going to bring any events, I think to me it's more going to be on that sort of level than a physical, pole shift or whatever it is. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. One thing I have learned is that if you make specific predictions for specific dates, they invariably turn out to be wrong. That's been the history as I've seen it, certainly in the last sort of 5-10 years. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think people can be very reactionary and buy into hype, and the more hype, the more close the information is. And if people are full of fear, they follow key phrases, etc., and do things that really aren't that logical. And I see this on both the right and the left in political terms and in all sorts of places. I mean, as an article that I saw today, are wind turbines increasing carbon emissions?
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, and on the other side, perhaps the truth movement is full of reactionary consciousness, as we've actually spoken about this before, and it's not to downplay people because people are doing a lot of good things, but people can fall into niches, and their emotions can sometimes be manipulated, and the perception can be managed, and so people can be an activist and be out being an activist and with their banners and stuff, and then they may not do more research, and this can even be 9/11 activists or climate change, although I don't really call them truthers. There's the political activists who are closed into a particular party, and then there's also a cult. People are into the occult, and they can be really closed-minded in terms of that. And then people are into more sort of airy-fairy stuff, and then stick to that. And it closes out other information. Sometimes it's good to stick to a certain paradigm, but also sometimes it can close out other potentials that really could be useful to both that person and to others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole idea of movements. Certainly from speaking from my own experience, I've never been a big joiner of groups particularly. That's not to say I haven't joined any groups in the past, but I've always been a bit of a loner in certain ways in things that I've done, often through choice, not through partly through circumstance, partly through choice. It seems to have been for me, but I think the difficulty is that the system that we have doesn't really encourage independent thought very much. Those who think independently are generally don't get very good treatment in certainly in our system, unless they also have a kind of degree of shrewdness about them, and they understand how to use the system to their advantage, while still thinking independently. That's just, there are a few exceptions, but a lot of people who question, why does the church teach certain things? Why does the government work a certain way? Why, are people, put into a system of taxation and so on? The people that ask those sorts of questions tend to often not do very well in our society.
Unless they step back and fill out their thinking. Right. Because if they sit back and sit in the corner and think they're the victim, then they won't get that clarity to then go out into the world and then speak their truth. Because finding your truth can really add a lot of value to the world when you've got all these rebels who can actually be quite uptight and quite angry individuals, and then actually they fall into groups. And that can be a solution to being a loner, is just to fall into another group.
Yeah, and I think certain of those groups end up being manipulated, and that energy, be it positive or negative actually, can be channeled by someone or some other entity that knows how to channel it and used for their own ends. That's, I think, well, certainly for me, but I tend to sort of, I don't get emotional very, very often. I'm a pretty sort of, level-headed kind of person, and I have this sort of intuition that if I get emotional, highly emotional, highly charged emotion about something, it will be used in some way to, in effect, create an effect which I never intended to be created. So I have this sort of subconscious reaction to that, I suppose. And so going back to, I think, something you mentioned earlier on, if you follow your intuition and you follow certain feelings that you may not be 100% sure about where you're going, but you have this feeling that it looks okay, and you're going to try and sort of go with it and go with the flow a bit and see where you get to, and then sort of with the view, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just have to do something else, and eventually it'll work out, whatever I do. And this has been what's happened in my life experience a bit. There's certain things I've done haven't really worked out. They haven't been a huge disaster, but they haven't really worked out very well. So I've just had to sort of, say, well, that didn't work very well. Let's try something slightly different and go with this feeling. And and then at the end of all of that, I've ended up now, at the point in my life where I think, I've actually, ended up in a situation where, you mentioned, for example, 9/11 research, which if you go and look at my website, you'll find out that all the topics that I've got on there, that's the one that I've ended up writing most about. And the particular things that I've ended up doing, I've sat down, and this is not, I'm not meaning this in a sort of an egotistical or tooting my own horn way, but when I've sat down quietly and thought, well, I've done all of these things, for better or for worse. I'm thinking for better, I'm hoping for better, people tell me for better, I get messages and so on of support. And I think, well, if I was to think of all the people in the world, who else could have done this? And I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty much probably, with the things that I've done, I'm probably the only person that could have done this in this way. So does that mean then that I've followed, the path that I felt is the right one to get to be where I am now? And I think, internally I've said, yeah, well, I think it probably is. Not with definite certainty, but it's that kind of feeling that's kind of carried me along, certainly over the last few years, and sort of and kept that in balance, sort of thing,
Yeah, I think you're very right. And when I look at the hosts on this station, Wolf Spirit Radio, the people are they've gone through their path, and it's like, would anybody else have been able to go through that? There's Dave Corso, first generation super soldier. There's even Jeremy. What he's doing, he's supporting people by producing. We've got Rebecca Jernigan. She's extremely intuitive. Does a really great show. Stuart Swerdlow as well. Just very interesting people, and I think you're right. People find their niche, and then they follow that, and the outcome is really great at the end of the day when you follow that feeling, when you follow that intuition, because that's what just feels right.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, I don't know what it's been like for other people, but I've never particularly forced anything. I've sort of maybe applied a little bit of pressure here and there in things I've wanted to get done. But I've sort of mainly done a lot of stuff myself, partly because of my family background as well, which was quite somewhat unusual in a good way. And as you know, I'm closely associated with Dr. Judy Wood, and you met us both in Birmingham and in in October, and comparing her life and my life, it's very different, but also a lot of common threads, and there's a lot of stuff we've kind of had to work out for ourselves, which I think goes back to this, independent thought, independent operation, not worrying too much about peer pressure, doing things in a certain way, and not thinking, people are going to think I'm stupid if I do it this way. Try not to think that too much. So again, I think that seems to be the following of your inner guide or higher oversoul or whatever name you want to give to it. I don't really know what name to give to it. Other people seem to know more about it than I do, but it just seems to be a sort of almost unquantifiable to me factor.
Well, I don't think that you and Dr. Judy Wood, you don't follow solid outcomes. You don't try and find a particular outcome. You have a very logical way of thinking, and I think that's brought you to certain conclusions, and it also gives more credence to what you've found, I think, because you both come from your own angles, but you've both got this similar kind of logic, and to me, it seems pretty solid, and I'm just going on the evidence of it, of you as people, and the information that you bring forward, and I've thought about what you've said, and I don't really see any holes. I'm open to there being holes in it, and but I'm having you on because I think you're a thoroughly decent person and you've got some interesting things to say, and I believe you believe in what you're saying, and it's important that people hear what you're saying because perhaps you've been unfairly attacked for being true to yourself and not falling into paradigms that may suit others.
Well, thanks very much. I mean, that's obviously certainly what I've tried to do, and I think what Dr. Judy has as well is to sort of stick with what's observable, what has been observed, and really just go through a logical sequence of analysis and thought to come, as you say, to a conclusion. And it seems to be the case that obviously when you're challenging whatever paradigm it is, you do get attacked. And there's all those phrases. First they laugh at you, then they attack you, and then they agree with you, and those sorts of things. We have been attacked a lot, but we have remained independent overall. I made the mistake of joining this Scholars for 9/11 Truth group. It was only an online group. It wasn't a group that met physically. It was a virtual group, if you will. But nevertheless, in joining that group as I did, after an invitation, I joined it not because I thought it would give me prestige or recognition for what I was doing or kudos or anything like that. That wasn't the reason I joined. It was, I think probably for the same reason that you decided to ask to do this broadcast. You want to present the information that you have found to a wider audience and have the opportunity to say to people, look, have a look at this. This is really interesting. Doesn't this arouse your curiosity? Which is what a point I'll come back to. But in joining this group, I then found that this group was being manipulated, and the people within it, some of them were being manipulated, I think, without realising it. Some of them were being manipulated, and they did realise it, but didn't do anything about it. And the others were doing the manipulating. And that's, what I've written quite a lot about those people doing the manipulation. This, again, back to this psychopathic mentality, which is certainly quite alien to me. I don't want to manipulate anybody. Indeed, quite the reverse. I want people to think for themselves, do what they can for themselves, be independent, and so on, and find their own path and their own truth. But again, just to go back to this curiosity angle. And one of the things I have sort of changed a little bit in what I do is, for example, I used to, I didn't do it a lot, but I used to go out and give out a lot of leaflets and stuff like that, and give out DVDs and so on. But I don't do that as much now because it seems to me that the way these changes are coming about is through people's curiosity. Their curiosity is tweaked by something, and I hope, well, this has been my experience a little bit, that my website covers a number of different topics, such as health, 9/11, moon landings, and so on. And it is my hope that if they're drawn into one of those areas and they think, "Oh, I never knew that. Oh, that's interesting," and I've had people come into the website because of the information about chemtrails, and they've written to me. Quite a lot of people have written to me about that, actually, and certainly in the UK. And and then they'll go off and I'll say, "Well, did you know this about 9/11?" And they'll go, "Oh, I never knew that. I'll go look at that." And so I'm hoping that having that sort of mix of information is going to tweak people's curiosity, and then it's going to encourage them within themselves, not particularly through anything I do other than pointing them at a signpost of some kind, that they're going to find their own path in what to do.
Yeah, you're causing a ripple,
right?
And it's making them sit back and think for maybe even just a few seconds, but that may just be enough for them to move in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, and I think if things are going to change, to me, I think that's going to end up being the most powerful process, possibly, because everything up to now, as you know, I mean, the classical view is that we have somebody, you know, I'm probably being a bit cliched here, you know, standing in a parapet with, you know, reading off a sheet, or, you know, one arm on the parapet, the other arm in the air, saying something or other about something or other, you know, believing God, or we've got to have, you know, civil rights in this country, or so on, or something like that, and so on. You know, that's kind of the standard model that's put forward for change, or that's the one that's presented.
It's militaristic again.
Right.
They're actually playing into the system. It's like people think that's how things are done, because you need to put some force into it, and force equals military, and flow equals consciousness, and we need to remember that. We need this needs to be something that people know, because it's certainly not taught to people in schools.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, I've said to a few people, I don't know whether it's correct, but again, it's going on my feeling that, you know, if you look at John Lennon, for example.
Ghost of John Lennon.
Yeah, we're back online.
Hi everyone, this is Rebecca Jernigan. 2012 is the year of change, and
we'll have those adverts in about 8 minutes' time. Yeah, we've had a bit of trouble with the Revolution Radio server, and it went down, and it's back up again. But you guys are... I didn't want to interrupt you. You're all in the flow, so you can listen to it on the archive. It's all there. So do come back to us. We're back on the air.
Okay.
Okay. Where were you up to? I lost my flow there.
Well, basically, you know, we can go from, we were talking about the idea of movements and how people can be manipulated and so on. And I'd mentioned, I don't know whether it went out because we got cut off, but I was talking about this idea that looking at the idea of change on a large scale, one of the sort of cliched images is somebody, you know, standing in a pulpit, and I think I used the wrong word before, and you know, arm in the air, reading off a script or making some great oration, you know, and then of course everyone claps and the world changes. I mean, you know.
Yeah. It's called revolution. Just goes round and round. Doesn't actually change anything.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, I don't know if this went out, that force equals military and flow equals consciousness. And if they're using force, you're just playing into the game. And people think that the way to do things is the way that the system does things, and it's just pyramidal thinking.
Yeah, pyramidal thinking. That's a good way of describing it. You know, I then mentioned John Lennon because, you know, in looking at John Lennon, you know, for example, I think one of the really bizarre things that he said initially was when, and this is quite a famous quote, maybe not everyone knows it, I'm not sure, I'm sure many of the audience will know this quote, when he said, the Beatles have become more popular than Christianity, or because more people had heard of the Beatles than had heard of Christianity. And of course there's this huge outcry, and in America they organise these huge burn your Beatles records bonfires, you know, and I'm sure there are videos of this on YouTube and so on. And then of course he had to sort of retract that, and you know, yeah, did, that's right. They did buy more records to burn, and And they had to sort of retract that, and then John Lennon sort of said, "Oh, I didn't mean to say what I said, and it came out wrong." And to me, that was indicative that he was thinking in a different way to a lot of the other people in a similar position to him. And he was when he said something, because of the way that he said it and his accent and his background, there was a certain kind of force behind what he was saying. And then he started getting big time into the peace movement. There's a very interesting documentary which people could try and track down. It's called The US versus John Lennon. And they actually have former FBI officers coming forward and saying, well, they had a file on John Lennon. They were keeping tabs on him. Nixon administration was very, very worried about what he was doing and what he was up to. And really why I wanted to bring that up without going into all the details was because what he ended up saying was that if you want peace, you should go to bed, And I mean, to me, what he was saying is, if you want peace, then be peaceful. And I think it sounds sort of strange to some people that could ever work. But I think that was a very, very dangerous thing to be going around and saying to millions of people. Very dangerous to the establishment. That you should, and in saying that, I don't think he was saying you should just, acquiesce to everything. That wasn't really what he was saying. I think he was saying that you should not allow yourself to be manipulated, and not fight other people's wars and not get involved in other people's conflicts, and so on. I think that's what he was saying. And then he went around saying that the world was run by psychopaths. I mean, again, there's a clip of him saying that in this film, and there's other clips I've heard on YouTube of him saying that. He knew that there was this predatory consciousness at work, right, running the world basically, and that is what's happening. I mean, I know that for sure, even if other people don't. There is this other non-human thing running most of the planet. I don't know what it is. Obviously David Icke will describe it one way, other people describe it other ways. I personally don't know what it is. Other people have done more research and have more evidence than I do of what it is, but I know there is something.
Well, I don't think this military structure could be so sound if it wasn't for something above human controlling it. I just don't see how that could happen.
Right.
It's just so intrusive into so many areas.
Right.
Yeah, there's no way it wouldn't have fallen. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think at that time perhaps the left was a lot more genuine than it is now. Unfortunately, nowadays people on the left might take that as I mean, how do I put it? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do. I mean, what we've got now, and to use the buzz phrase, is we've got a lot of left gatekeepers.
Yeah.
We seem to have a lot of people, a lot of figures. Yeah. For example, let's take Amy Goodman as one example. She claims to be, wanting democracy and so on. But yes, she won't touch the issue of 9/11. She won't really touch in any meaningful way the fact that the official story of 9/11 is completely bogus. And that is just, you can't do it. I mean, certainly from where I stand, she has no credibility. If people like her and Noam Chomsky and all these other highfalutin intellectuals are not going to touch 9/11 and look at the evidence, then, I mean, frankly, I'm not interested in anything else they say, because it is so fundamental to the political process that story is false. And of course, as we might discuss in the second hour, how it impinges on other things, as I've discovered and Dr. Judy Wood has discovered. If you're not going to go into that, then you're just not going to get anywhere. You're not going to have any type of meaningful change. You are going to have a revolution. You are going to go round and round the same cycles. So if you're interested in those cycles continuing, then fine, carry on talking about those things. But if you want to break out of that cycle into this new territory, this new reality, then you're going to have to start looking elsewhere.
Well, I think that's a good place to pick up on the other side of the hour. So, do you want to go to break now, Jeremy?
Radio.
Hi everyone, this is Rebecca Jernigan. 2012 is the year of change and manifestation. And during January, I'm presenting 3 unique events and workshops. On January 22nd, Past Life Guided Imagery, Galactic Healing, a fantastic place for integration of the soul. January 23rd, Stepping into Awareness. This is a 2-part workshop designed to develop, identify the subtle information that we all carry within ourselves and so much more. And finally in January, on the 25th, Channeling with the Elohim. They begin by talking about the human experience and why this is so important to everything on all levels. Questions are welcomed and encouraged. For detailed information and to sign up, please check out RebeccaJernigan.com.
This is Stuart A. Swerdlow, and you're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Life is a struggle for all of us. But what if you could not speak? What if you were reliant on someone else for your very existence? The forgotten ones are our pets. So many dogs are being put down due to their parents not being able to provide for them. Dogs that are trained, fixed, have their shots and are domesticated. Loving dogs, wishing for their new family to come and rescue them. Save the Pets is a volunteer group wanting to help the ones without a voice. If you're a veterinarian, dog trainer, or a loving family that can save a life, please get involved. We need your help. The love you give to your animals is the love the universe gives back to you. Make a difference in the lives of the forgotten ones. For more information, please contact Mugsy at yahoo.com. That's Mugzzi at yahoo.com. The time is now to adopt a pet.
Welcome to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Okay, I think we're back. You there, Andrew?
I'm here.
Okay, I'm just finishing making a cup of tea. It's nice to just have pleasant things, isn't it? Sometimes.
It is the English national vice, the cup of tea.
There we go. Which tea is your favourite?
Oh, well, I just have the one of the brands here. I just drink the sort of ordinary tea. I'm a bit of a tea drinker. There's various sort of popular brands here. We have one or two different ones, but yeah, that's about it. Occasionally I'll have a herbal tea. Mainly there's ordinary ones. Green tea I quite like as well. I've got sort of developed a fondness for that, but yeah.
Yeah, I've never really got round to drinking much green tea, to be honest. It's sort of for a slower pace of life, isn't it? And you've got more time to think about things.
Yeah, I suppose.
And, I'm always thinking about something. I'm slowing down more and more all the time, but because I'm getting more and more clear in myself. And a few months ago, I don't think I would have been clear enough to do a radio show, but now I feel pretty clear and confident, and that's pretty good. But I was thinking in the break when John Lennon was saying peace and love, he really meant it. He wasn't putting labels on it. And nowadays it's like everything has got a label on it. Everything means something else.
Right. I mean, I just wanted to sort of dwell on John Lennon specifically, just as a couple of interesting points. Because as we said, I think his message to me, as I read it, was, or as I understood it, simply, if you want peace, be peaceful, and how dangerous that was. And certainly the times that he was speaking in the 70s, when the Vietnam War was in full swing, and it was this documentary that I mentioned, and it was a perfect choice of record that was played in the break there. I mean, Mind Games. I mean, what are we talking about? It's just exactly what we're talking about. And he wrote a song. Who else has written a song called Mind Games? I think there's been one other song a bit like it, but fantastic stuff. And what I wanted to mention was when John Lennon was shot in 1980. I think they'd been fighting to get him deported from the US. Maybe this isn't that well known, but he did get into the press, and eventually they ended up giving him a green card. And then he had his son Sean. I think it was in 1975 or 76 that Sean Lennon was born. And he basically lived a sort of pretty normal family life in New York, which was where he was living with Yoko. And he was very happy, apparently. And he wasn't really doing much in the way of, sort of protest and so on. But after the first 5 years or so with Sean, that's when he came out with Double Fantasy, the album. And so he started doing stuff again. And maybe the powers that be were thinking, oh, this Lennon guy is becoming active again. We'd better do something about it, because John Lennon was shot, I think it was about 2 weeks after when Reagan was elected. So I
noticed something, sorry. there have been some documentaries about John Lennon and some films, some BBC Channel 4 type films done on him, and I don't know that much about John Lennon, but these films were making him look like a complete wacko, and I was thinking, is this trying to destroy his character through drama? And I really wouldn't at all be surprised, because drama equals military. Again, it's military programming. Why do they have all these police programs on all the time? It's just making people all look at their neighbours and just be scared all the time and think that the system is just where I'm coming from.
I do, and I think again, you have to consider that, because the media is complicit and controlled, of course, as it is. I think absolutely that's what was going on. And to get somebody like Lennon out of the way when Reagan came to power, I think it was like, squashing a bug that they didn't want on the windscreen of their car, or wiping off a bug, or whatever you want to, metaphor you want to use. And I only learned of the timing of that, that it was literally, I think, within a couple of weeks of Reagan being elected. And they wouldn't have wanted somebody like John Lennon trampling all over the Reagan administration's war agenda, which is what it was. And of course, Lennon started to explore consciousness as well, and he wrote about that. If you listen to Tomorrow Never Knows, for example, and listen to the lyrics of that, and I put this into a presentation that I did about consciousness, which people can view on the website if they want. And I tried to put a few ideas together there about what I thought John Lennon was part of and why he became very dangerous. And a couple of other people that I'd list in that category as Bill Hicks, who started talking a lot about consciousness and what it was actually about. And he described in one of his comedy acts, in the middle of it, that we're all on this ride, and anybody that tells you that it's a ride and you shouldn't really worry about the ride too much because it's just a ride, he said, when people come along and tell you that, we kill those people, he said. And then, of course, Bill Hicks was dead at the age of 33. So, what does that tell you?
Yeah, he's one of the few people in history that I've come across and thought, wow, did that person actually exist?
Right. Right.
The stuff he was saying, just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when I remember this, where I used to work in Nottingham, and there were some guys that I worked in the adjacent sort of part of the office, and I remember they were all going to see Bill Hicks in Nottingham, and I didn't really know him. I'd seen him once on TV, and I didn't think he was that funny or something. I had no idea at that time what he was, the sorts of things he was coming out with, and I wish, obviously, now that I'd had a chance to go and see him then, but even if I had, I probably wouldn't have realised what this was in the middle of his act, talking about everyone being part of this, consciousness field, experiencing itself, and he came up with this fantastic description in one of his acts, and it's just so wonderful. You should go and check it out. It's just brilliant how he managed to encapsulate all of this in a couple of sentences. I don't know how he managed to do it, but it was fantastic.
I haven't looked at any of his stuff for a few years now, because I've watched pretty much all of his videos about 3 times. I've seen it now, but it's amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to maybe get JP's input on the Paul McCartney thing, because I don't know if Andrew's heard of this.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it, all right.
Jeremy, do you want to just mention that just for a minute?
Sir Paul McCartney.
You have permission.
Well, it's a very long story, and as Sophie suggests, I might have to do an entire show or a weekend about it. I can tell you, there's a lot. Because, all right, so the general synopsis is that the real Paul, they had an argument in 1966. He went out, had a car crash, lost his head, and it was completely mangled up in the car accident. The woman in the car with him was called Rita. Her daughter, I believe, is Heather Mills. It's all very, very complicated. I believe that Jimi Hendrix was murdered because of it, possibly Mama Cass, but I'm not sure. Brian Jones, I think, was murdered because of it. Brian Epstein, I think, was murdered because of it. And the whole meme about, oh yeah, rock stars, they take drugs and they die, you know, all the way up to Amy Winehouse, it's an Illuminati meme that has been placed into our minds to make it easy for us to accept when rock stars do die. However, there's a great exception to the rule. His name is Keith Richards. He's taken every drug known to man to the extreme edge of experience, and look, he's still there. He may be a walking skeleton, but he's still alive. Meanwhile...
Maybe he's an alien.
Maybe he is. I think Jeff Beck is alien. Him and Steve Vai, they are from this other zone. They play music like no human. Incredible guys. Meanwhile...
they're possessed.
So... Paul McCartney died in 1966, and they did a lookalike contest, and this guy won it. His name's Bill Campbell. He was a right-handed piano player, but he could sing, and he was a great imitator, and they got him to do the best Paul McCartney impression that you've ever seen. And that's why when you look at the album, you look at the cover, and you think, there's John, there's George, there's Ringo, who's that? Oh, it's Paul.
But with different eye colour.
He's got different coloured eyes and really intense, starey eyes. You know, he's got. I actually, you know, the original Paul had this kind of flopsy kind of face. He had a Bell's palsy. He's like slightly dropped on the left-hand side. And this other guy's got these really intense, demonic eyes. And you know, a lot of people think, you know, there was something weird about the Beatles. It wasn't. There were so many mysteries about the Beatles, and this explains all of them.
And of course, the things that I've read and heard on that is the lyrics to "I'm Looking Through You." If you read those lyrics in the "I'm Looking Through You" song, that is a perfect description of what happened to Paul.
That's right.
You know, and it's very, very odd. And death is mentioned in several songs, isn't it? Where, you know, death isn't a word that usually comes into a nice ballad, you know. Not the word. I think the word death rather than die. You know, you say I'll die if you don't love me and things like that. But it's death in a sort of
still believe sense. It when he's dead. Yeah. So there's an awful lot of death references in this otherwise brightly coloured psychedelic. Oh, everything's fine, you know, kind of thing. And there's this sinister thing. So because at that point when he died, MI5 got involved, and when MI5 get involved, there's no kind of going back. It's like it's a full-on situation, and these boys who just wanted to have a great time suddenly got involved with the darkest, deepest parts of our world, the dark underbelly of the secret services. You know, it's like the monkeys being created by the CIA. That's the sort of level that we're talking about. You know, it's just like pop bubblegum. But for some reason there was a British prestige. Anyway, MI5 said they could do it. They could do the transformation. They've got good enough plastic surgeons who could turn this guy into something very closely resembling Paul McCartney. With all
6 inches taller.
Yeah, that's right. They had to saw his legs down a bit.
Yeah. Apparently that's what you can see if you look at the photographs, isn't it? I don't know whether you studied that. And
yeah, I don't think he's not 6 inches tall, but he's
maybe not. Maybe
considerably a larger being.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
a couple of inches taller, I think.
Yeah, he's taller and broader. He's like kind of proportionately larger. So that's why he looked taller.
Can we get back to psychopathic systems? Sorry.
Well, anyway, so let me just say that I think that the present Paul McCartney is a psychopath. That or he's been mind controlled, and he doesn't even know that he isn't who he thinks he is.
Yeah.
So.
And I will just tie that back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, which is Obama, because I stumbled across, when I was looking at some of the points that you were talking about there, I stumbled across a YouTube video taken quite recently. In fact, I think it was probably 2008, 2009. Elvis Costello in the White House, I think, I can't remember which song he was doing, whether it was Oliver's Army or Watching the Detective. I can't remember which one it was, but it's on YouTube. Camera cuts to the audience. Obama's in the audience. Sat right next to Obama is Sir Paul McCartney. And that just gave me the creeps, I have to say it.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. He's one of the secret masters of the universe. Anyway, I'll duck out of your show now, okay?
Well, thanks for that.
That's all right, Chris. No problem. Anytime. What do you mean?
Okay. Yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, coming back to John Lennon and how perhaps the left were more genuine at that time. This is something that I have been thinking about the last few days. I've been thinking about many things the last few days, and really can come into some interesting conclusions. But as you were saying about democracy now and those kinds of, and Noam Chomsky, that there isn't a real. You've got to be careful when you go into the whole left-right paradigm thing. But there's not really a left truth movement, would you say? Not really that delves into information at depth, because it just seems to paper over the cracks. It seems to just follow certain ideas. And I was because a week ago I was kind of quite frustrated, because I was thinking the truth movement is actually slightly there were some hit pieces that came out recently saying rise of the new right, and then blaming the truth movement and saying that they basically demonizing the truth movement as the right. And the people who they were mentioning, I wouldn't really call them. To be honest, I haven't actually seen it, so I can't really talk about it too much. But the principle is that the people who they are attacking, you couldn't really call them right-wing, I think. I think really that the truth movement now, as a whole, I would call actually left-wing against the right-wing system in old terms. And perhaps the reason that the truth movement could be labelled as right-wing is because there's a certain mentality to do with the right, which is standing up for things, and it's a bit brutish, whereas the left is more going with the flow and peace and love. Although that's been tainted, but there are people who are standing up for what they think is right, and you can call that right wing. But as I was saying earlier, it's the rebel nature of things, and people don't have the time to fill in all the blanks, and then they do have certain mentality that they hold. You know, that they are angry, and they have a right to be in many cases. But of course, we're in a time now where we have to be careful of where we go in terms of what we say and act, and so I guess I thought I'd address that. I don't know what you think about that.
I think I think there's been this. You know, if you look at what the left and right seem to stand for, as I understood things, the right was kind of more towards. You know, you had to have a lawful society, and you had to punish people. It's a more punitive type of mentality that, you know, believes in this idea that if you have firm laws that are well enforced, you will have a good society where, you know, things will run well, but you can still maintain freedom. That was generally, certainly in the UK, that was a kind of mentality, the conservative mentality. That, you know, you stood up for cultural values, whatever they were, and so on. Whereas the left, you know, is more into, you know, the rights of a group of individuals and protecting those rights and And of course we had all the trade unionist movement and all the shambolic situations that ended up as. And I think, over time, well, certainly in this country over the Blair years, that the left, what was the left wing, was already becoming more similar to what was normally thought of as right wing, and so I suppose a kind of void opened up on where the left should have been. There wasn't really much of anything. I suppose there was the liberals, and libertarians in the US, which probably captured some of the vote.
It almost seems like it switched, like the left. Now, this is what I've been thinking for a little while now. Is that the left is acting like the right now, and the right is acting like what the left was.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has been something of a switch in that way, but I think at various points these kind of voids have opened up, and then we've had these other groups, and if you look, one of the things that seems to have happened a lot, certainly in the last 5 years in the UK, is charity groups kind of filling those voids, Greenpeace and so on, and the World Wildlife Fund. They've actually become, and some of the climate-related groups, they sort of become mini political parties in certain ways. That's how I observe it. Maybe that's
lobbying.
Yeah, I mean, they've just turned into these lobbying bodies, which they're generally more not quite single issue, but they're more focused around a single thing. Perhaps because people have thought, well, I'm disillusioned with Labour, I'm disillusioned with Tory, or I'm disillusioned with the Republican, I'm disillusioned with the Democrat. So if I go to this one issue, whether it's child abuse or cancer, doing something to help raise funds for cancer research, which of course is another scam. I think maybe more people seem to have been drawn into those things because they're disillusioned with the political process. And so again, those groups have been set up and targeted to be manipulated so that all that positive energy is used for nefarious means. And all of these groups, all these climate groups, they have no idea what they're dealing with. They have absolutely no idea that somebody is able to control the weather.
They can't believe it. They've bought so much into this peace and love mentality that they really can't see they can't perceive the possibility that there's a greater conspiracy, never mind an all-encompassing conspiracy.
Right. I say to people when, if I think we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago when we had a long chat, and I say to people that what I'm going to tell you, if I was to go through what's some of the stuff on my website and go through it in detail in person with people, so that they weren't just reading it off a website, even a conspiracy theorist wouldn't believe it. That's the way I phrase it, because people just can't take it on board. They cannot take that the level of psychopathic manipulation and control goes down almost to a man. It's all the psychopathic system. It infiltrates literally everything. Yeah. You have to completely bypass your belief system and see everything on face value. And I've always known this, and this is why I've just felt, it's just so messed up. But I'm not going to lie to myself and say that it's not like that. I'm not going to say, listen, in this area, it's okay. In this area, it's okay. Because it pervades everything. It pervades most people's minds, and even probably ours, and we don't realise it. I think apart from, I don't want to say a number, but it isn't that many people who aren't within that system, and they react within it, even if to some degree they think they're not within it, but they still look up to it in other areas, because they think that it doesn't pervade everything, but it actually does. But I just wanted to get back to quickly, because I think this is an important point, and I've been mulling over it the last few days, and there isn't a left wing truth movement really. I don't see it. It's not genuine. And that's
why I think that there's Fox News and such, and then they obviously twist what people like Jesse Ventura and Alex Jones and David Icke say, and then the other side then say, oh look, these people they're all right wing. But then you could actually turn that around and say, well, perhaps the problem is not the right element, it's the fact that there isn't a left element. You guys are not coming into the game. You're just demonizing the game. You're demonizing the real guys, the guys that are conscious. And some of them may be a bit brutish, etc. But they're real. They're not pretending to be something that they're not. And this is the thing about the left. And they seem to think they're real, or they tell themselves they're real. And to be honest, I see it with most people, and especially middle class people who think that they almost think that they've got something special about them, like they've been to some special school or something, and they think that they're going to bring some specialness into the world, and they can support climate change action and Obama and stuff, and they think that by supporting sort of 10 or 20 icons or ideas, that they are helping humanity progress, and that this is evolution, and it's all the so-called right who are holding things back, and they're all brutish and they're all horrible, and they think that they all want war secretly, and that they're all secretly racist, when they're most of actually anyway. I just felt that was important to mention.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think there is that. This is the idea of belonging to a movement. I think it's like, for example, you join a movement or a group, and you read their stuff, and they may give you a list of suggested actions or something, or there may be a certain campaign which you contribute some money towards or something. And so, if you look at how that operates, that group, whatever it is, has gone through some set of discussion, and they've sent out a mailing and agreed that this is a good thing to do. And then you'll read that mailing, whether it be a postal or email or whatever, and you'll think yes, oh yeah, okay, so they're trying to, save the polar bears or something. Okay, I'll send them £20, or I'll go to the meeting on Saturday and hold up a banner or something, whatever it is. And you may not actually have any knowledge that there is a whole set of other information behind that, which makes that whole exercise utterly pointless. And certainly when if I was to present some of the information, like for example, I went down to this meeting about geoengineering, which was now openly being discussed by scientists, and this was at a meeting in the Royal Society, and this was over a year ago now. Actually, it was in November 2010, and I was giving out leaflets about Hurricane Erin, and chemtrails and stuff like this, in the hope that I could just get some people to look at them and say, look, there's something else going on behind all of this stuff that you've looked at. There is stuff you haven't even noticed, which you need to go and look at. One guy just thought I was. He literally said I was mad. He said, "Oh, I've got this mad guy," and he literally said, "Don't listen to him." He said, this is somebody else who was walking past. He's mad. He literally said that, and I thought, what on earth is this guy? What is he thinking that I'm mad because I'm showing somebody about a hurricane that was off the coast of New York on 9/11. I mean, that's madness, is it, to show somebody that, rather than actually study it and see what it means, And that's why, that's how, because this psychopathic mindset is relying on your ignorance and your either your lack of time, or your lack of ability, or your lack of lack of will to go and check things out for yourself and study things. that's where you got. That's where you become able to be manipulated, and that happened to me with the 9/11 groups, specifically in 2006. And I was used to put out false information, because I had this goodwill that I was trying to change things, and I was manipulated into doing that.
But the thing is that you do have goodwill, and you do have good logic, and you can be manipulated to some degree. But
Right.
but when you saw that it was wrong, then you changed course, and that's
Right.
the thing about people who are genuine and do things on merit, because they eventually they find the right way. Hopefully,
Right, I think that brings us to a couple of points, because you're right, I did change course. It took me some time to work out my mistake and exactly what, the implications of it were and so on. It took me several months, actually, with the help of somebody else, who, and, I was given information which I was allowed to, come to terms with over a period of time. And I've written about this for people that want to read it. And it took me time. And nobody forced me down that particular route. It was a choice I made myself. But when you do make I essentially made a U-turn, or kind of a U-turn, I suppose. But that is also criticised in our society. Political figures, for example, rely on making a point, sticking to it, and then in the press they're often openly criticised and hounded and lambasted when they change their mind. Now, of course, in the political arena, it's often for political or capital gain that they've changed their mind. But nevertheless, people are. It's often seen as a sign of weakness when people change their minds about something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that plays into the psychology, and then you get another mean there that plays into the way that you react to things, where you're afraid to change your mind because you might think, people are going to judge you on that basis. But again, that was never really an issue for me. I didn't really think about that, because I was trying to do the right thing, and I'd made a mistake. And I was used to making mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes in the past. And, I hope is how I've, by looking at those mistakes and working out what I did wrong, is how I've tried to move forwards, hopefully in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, you always have what you have. You always have yourself, and you can afford to make mistakes because you want to do the right thing, and then you learn from that as well. You obviously don't make completely ridiculous mistakes, but I don't know if you've made completely ridiculous mistakes, but
well, I mean, in other areas of life, I suppose I have, not in any major way, I suppose. But I got involved in teaching and tutoring a good few years ago now, and I think it was one of the other lecturers who I was working with at the time, and I think he was in the staff room, and he said to me, when you go into a classroom of students, you're going to get a whole range of people in there. You're going to get some people who know nothing, some people who know a reasonable amount, some people are going to work, some people are going to not work, and there are going to be some people in that room who know more about the subject than you do. And I thought, well, that's a great comment, and I knew he was right, but it was useful for him to remind me of that, I suppose, because that kind of really affected my attitude going into that classroom and thinking, well, I can learn stuff in here as well as teaching other people stuff,
Yeah, it's also support.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just hearing words. It's other people really showing that they care, and that adds another layer to it. Words are not just vibration. Well, they are, yeah, but it's what's behind it. And,
that's right, and that's, I've tried to stick to that sort of idea that I don't know, I don't know everything, and if I do make mistakes, I would really rather like people to correct me if they can show me where I'm wrong, because then I can improve, the accuracy of the information that I'm giving to people. and make sure that it's the best level I can make it for, based on the resources and time that I've got to apply to it. So
what's your stance on evidence? How do you approach that?
Well, I think there's certain things you can establish as being true, and there's certain things you can establish as being possibly true, and you have a sliding scale of that, really. And I think I suppose I've had that attitude to dealing with things, and I suppose one of the things that you become frustrated with when you start looking at, for example, UFO evidence, and you get some very high quality witnesses, you get physical evidence, trace landing cases and this sort of thing, yet whatever evidence you present to a scientist who is skeptical, most of them in many cases they won't even deal with it. They'll just claim that it's fraudulent and so on. I just try and look at what the evidence is, whether it's photographic, video, witness testimony, whether you can corroborate it, how the evidence is being presented. For example, is the guy who's presenting the evidence at the end of his presentation saying, well, I've given you just a taster of this, but if you got $50 in your pocket, you can buy this DVD with the rest of it on. I'm thinking, oh well, maybe he's needs his $50 to continue his research, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's the evidence is worthless. I look at both how the evidence is presented, who is presenting it, if there is a history to this person now. I've started looking into that more, and if there is an agenda, and again, so you're looking at some of it on an intuitive level. To see, well, is there some kind of thing that doesn't seem quite right? I think it's like what you were saying, about Obama. It just gives you the creeps for some reason, and you're not, you couldn't quite put it into words why. I look at those feelings sometimes as well.
The feeling for me was so strong at the start. It was just very, very. It was sinister how strong it was, but then I put it on the back burner because there's so many other things to look into anyway, and to think about and to do and to work on. But watching this video yesterday brought not all of it back, but it just brought this really deep feeling of uncomfort. It's just something feels really wrong about him. But for me, in terms of evidence, with 9/11, when it happened, I just knew there was something wrong with it. But I always knew there was something wrong with these events anyway. With Diana, I just knew with that as well. But I never really spent a lot of time looking into it. I knew that other people were, but I thought, what's the point in just dabbling in it? Because you're not dabbling in it, are you? You're really looking at the evidence. And there are other people who sort of look here and look there and mention names and, oh yes, I know about this person, that person, and then they actually end up saying the wrong name anyway, and you're like, oh come on, what are you doing looking at this stuff? And it's like an obsession, but I don't want to be obsessed with it. And I have every so often. I to be honest, the only thing I've looked at for years is either showing somebody a video or I've watched something of yours, but I haven't really looked at 9/11 much in years, because what's the point? It's for me, I want to philosophically and energetically improve myself. And if information helps with that, then good, because there is new information that comes up here, there, and everywhere all the time, and I can look into that and gain something from it. But there comes a point when you can't gain any more, and you may as well look at other places, because it gives you this bigger spectrum, full spectrum of understanding. And there's going to be gaps here and there and stuff, but you're working on it all the time, and then you get to a point where you feel comfortable in yourself, philosophically and energetically, as I said, and then, because that's I think that's what we're trying to get to, is feel comfortable in ourselves, because the world just feels so uncomfortable. That's not just so that we can feel comfortable and sit back and, oh, now we feel comfortable because now we understand. If you have that attitude as well, then what's the point? Because I think that creation is full. To some degree, maybe going to spirituality, but well, if you look at the universe, it's just so vast. Absolutely. Yesterday I just realised how absolutely vast it was, and it was just, I just felt it. I think creation is full of goodness. To be honest, I think that it's this sector of this universe or this galaxy or whatever it is, maybe just this planet, is unbalanced, and to strive to put that right is a duty, because it's not like every single planet out there is totally messed up, and then everybody just puts it right. And I think we're putting this planet in a good place, where this planet can maybe a beacon for maybe the rest of the galaxy, or who knows, maybe further. This work is deeper than just being cynical about the world, and because we're simply trying to put things back in balance. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that seems to be part and parcel of what's going on, and I have sort of mixed feelings about all this too, and I think this idea, that we have to come to terms with, that we are just in what there's kind of, for me, a duality here, in that we know the universe is vast, and the information we've got, for example, from the Hubble Space Telescope, if we are to believe that is a fair view of an objective reality of which we are part, then the universe is indeed very, very vast. And Wilbert Smith is a person I've written about on my website, and he said that he was told that the human race in the form of man, as he put it then, perhaps sort of sexist in today's terminology, is spread throughout the universe and is incredibly ancient. Mm-hmm. And I get the sense that he was speaking from a kind of having experienced that in some way, perhaps as you sort of partly alluded to a couple of minutes ago. And I get that sensation too sometimes. But another sensation that I think, or another feeling that I have, is that we've talked about this idea of a predatory consciousness being here on this planet. And so my question, to which I don't have an answer, is that itself part of a natural process? If we watch these wildlife programs where we see a pack of wolves circling around a pack of bison or whatever, and the wolves go and target one and bring it down, and the others escape, or a different situation may arise where the bison gang up on the wolves and chase them off. Are we in some way in that sort of situation with all of this, in that we've got these wolves who are preying on us, this predatory consciousness, but they're so clever we don't even realise that that's what they're doing, and they're sucking our blood or whatever, or lifeblood, or conscious energy, and we don't even realise it. So
it shows how absolutely dumbed down this species have been, and the really the thing that really freaks me out is I've heard that our species has got such richness, and we're apparently royalty in terms of this galaxy, in terms of genetics, that we've had all sorts of genetics put into us, and from different races, and the whole galaxy is looking at us apparently to see what outcome will come, and with such a demonic consciousness. So I mean, the feeling I get from it is it really is. It's like almost imagine the worst consciousness in the galaxy, and then it comes to this planet, and imagine if they have the power of this planet, with the consciousness of this planet, and I mean, I don't think they're going to win. I really don't. But I think if they had held that power, that would be like an atomic bomb throughout the galaxy in terms of consciousness. They could really cause some real havoc in this galaxy, and I think the game is much deeper than perhaps we're even realizing. But of course, day to day we're just looking into this, that, and the other, and improving ourselves in one way or another. We can't just sit in the corner, as I said earlier, and let it all hit us and bombard us, because well, we have a lot on our shoulders, I think, and I think we should be proud of it rather than be scared of it, because we can perhaps change things on such a scale, and after this, not just our genetics, but perhaps the souls that bring us through this will be soul royalty for a long time. I know this is really deep and outside of where maybe we talk sometimes, but I think it's important to go there.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think having a feeling and an awareness for that, it's helpful to some degree. Just this idea that we are part of this larger game, and when we're ready, if we feel ready, and when we're ready to ask the question, well, how large is this reality, and how big or small is our role in it? And maybe the answer comes back as big as you want it to be, and there is this old saying, all the world's a stage and so on. And I often feel like that you are up against all these different characters and players in this sort of cosmic drama, as it were. And again, likening it to that idea of the ride, which Bill Hicks, likened it to.
But you can be the only person in the whole world who's sane, but then you're you have the duty to do what's right, even if if you know what's right, then even if everybody else doesn't see that, you have to act on that. And even if you've got the whole universe against you, even if you can switch the tiniest of things that then may take eons and eons of time to then perhaps shift even more, it's worth it, because that's why else did you come here?
Again, I have similar feelings in that a small act can trigger off a big change, and you may never live to know what change that you caused, or that you started, or whatever, or initiated. And I think it's again going back to that guiding feeling, intuition, and you tend to get given signs, it seems, as well within what you're doing, which can affirm what you're doing. And I seem to have been given certain little signs in things that I've done. And I remember my nephew, for example. He's he's a woodsman basically, and he described to me a few years ago how he'd come to a point in his life where he needed a caravan because of what he wanted to do. And then I think the next day or the next week, somebody actually he was working with said, "Oh, do you want this caravan that I've got?" So it seemed to me, listening to him, that he was doing what he had needed to do at that point in his life. And I've had some things like that have happened to me, not quite as literal as that, but similar things. So that I think if you can put your trust in this larger picture that's going on that you're part of, and that you will be given things or shown certain things in ways that you may not fully understand or fully appreciate how it's come about, then and following those things and trying not to react negatively but positively to most, if not all, situations, then that positive energy will be carried forward,
Yeah, I heard something. It was actually from a channel called Bashar, but he was saying that when your reality is shifted, not when what's around you changes, but when your attitude to it changes, and then you will change it, because the reality is a mirror, and you have to change it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and I've sort of said a couple of times that I think I've said something similar to that, if I interpret that properly, that when you become aware of this larger reality and you start to interact with it in certain ways and acknowledge it, it starts to interact with you, and you seem to enter some kind of feedback sort of situation.
You clean yourself in terms of emotions and just become still in a way. You don't need to completely still your mind, but be in the flow with the creation of events.
I suppose it's kind of like I go back to this idea that I tend to be more of an observer than anything else, and then I collect things, and then I sort of put them into a kind of a package, and you'll see this on the website, and then put that back out into the ether and see what comes back, and I generally find that positive things come back, or I may get people coming back to me and saying, oh, well, you've shared your observations, Andrew, I'd like to share one or two observations of mine. And I'll go, oh, yeah, that's good, that's interesting. It doesn't always work like that, but I've found that's worked very well for me personally, and in my own sort of development and exploration and so on. I've found that's worked very well for me on the whole.
Well, Andrew, we have... I don't know how long left, but I think we've only got
2 minutes.
2 minutes left. So if you want to just explain a bit more what you're about and your website before we end, and I'd like to have you on again if I do more shows in the future, because there's a lot more to cover, and we didn't really cover the information that you talk about, but I thought that it was very important to get a taster of what you're really about as a person, because I know that you have some real depth, and I don't know if people necessarily receive that, because you were talking about U-turning and stuff, and there's more depth to somebody, and you have to understand that before you judge their actions. So if you want to fill that in.
I'll try. Yeah. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I think it is difficult to cover these in the way that they're covered. I think, in 2 hours. But yeah, I mean, I've tried to analyse lots of different topics on the website, which have generally led me to the conclusions that we've talked about, that we're part of this larger reality. We are being manipulated. There is a force behind this. And I suppose my hope in that what I've done is that I've given people some information about the shape of this force or this entity or whatever you want to call it. There's some of it's been mapped out with the information I've tried to summarise and so on.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on. It was excellent show. I'm really happy at how it's gone, and I think you were the perfect choice for the first show. Hopefully I'll do more in the future, and thank you.
Thank you.